Hello, my name is Dr. Reinicke Lengel, and my presentation today is about poetry and the healing power of poetry within the context of bereavement. The official title of my presentation is Wiser Than We Are, the evocative and healing power of poetry in autoethnographic writing during bereavement. So I want to tell you a little bit about my story and about the book that I've just completed. The book is called Writing the Self in Bereavement, a story of love, spousal loss, and resilience. It will be out with Routledge in January 2021, so at the time of this conference. So it's just freshly out. When I wrote the autoethnography, it's a 240-page book telling the story of my grief at losing my spouse in November 2018. His name was Franz Myers, and he was my partner in life and in work. We did a lot of research and writing together, and he died of cancer. He was diagnosed in April of 2018, and he died in November, so he really went quickly. It was only 7 months that we had time to spend together, though we had wonderful dialogues in that period of time, and I wrote a lot of poetry at the time of his illness and also afterwards. So not only is the autoethnography that I've written filled with the story and narratives and also an analysis of my experience compared to the grieving literature, like the literature on grief that's out there. I did a whole lot of reading, and I'm an academic, so I did a lot of sort of analysis as well about, for instance, when I thought about and wrote about my own sadness, I looked at what does the research say about sadness as an adaptive emotion. But one of the things that was really important in my writing was not only to be the academic and to be the storyteller of what happened, but also I found that poetry was a natural part of my dealing with grief. And I want to talk about that today because there's something about poetry that's different. What is it that's different than just telling you the story, than making an analysis of grief and what grief looks like? So I'm going to start by actually reading you a poem from my book. And the first poem, it's right before the acknowledgments. And it's interesting when I wrote it. And when I wrote the acknowledgments, I realized how accompanied I was in grief and how many people really were thinking about me and looking out for me. And it created a kind of sense of wellness. And that doesn't mean that we don't do grief alone in a sense too. So we grieve alone. And at the same time, we're accompanied if we are open to that. So I'll just read you a poem. It's called Friends. I'm not on the right page. Now I am on the right page. Friends. There is a room inside me where my friends dwell. The doorways have no doors, and people come and go. In the middle of the room there are colored chairs, each piece unique, large, yellow, and soft for her. Red and green with black lacquer accents, Frida Kahlo style. For you. A mission oak rocker for him. I always smile when I see it, and a more serious medieval wooden stool for the old Celt. Then there is the blue velvet chair for my husband, but it is now empty, and a small pillow with flowers remains that speaks of the good memories. Some of the other chairs are empty too, because someone dear got busy, forgot to come back. No matter. I still love them. And I keep the room warm. Sometimes the seat is empty because you quarreled with me or judged me, but no matter. I still love you because I do, and I didn't choose you. Life gave me all my friends. We recognize each other, and if that recognition becomes music, eventually a new chair appears. Some are often used closest to the hearth. You can hear laughter or crying there. Others rest, wait, ready to welcome. We do not really make friends, it seems. They come to help make us. In that poem, not only do I appreciate my friends and show how friendship was is in my life in general, but also in grief. But I also show that sometimes things go wrong with friendship too, that sometimes the chair is left for a time, and that's okay. One of the lessons that I learned in grief and from my grieving book is that there are secondary losses in grief. So for instance, the friends that I thought might be very close to me when Franz died weren't that close to me, and sometimes even colleagues or people at more of a distance said exactly the things I needed to hear and supported me in ways that I needed to be supported, and they have become friends. And then when grief sort of found its way and settled down, I reconnected with some of the old friends, and our relationship has changed for the better as a result of it. So we can't really predict what will happen with friendship and grief. And this poem also was a way for me to see that and realize that, and that also to realize that my love was still unconditional for my friends, even though sometimes I had to ask them not to be in my life as actively because I wasn't getting what I needed, and it was a very vulnerable time for me. So that was one of the things I learned in writing that poem. So poems are wiser than we are, which is the title of this talk. They're wiser often than we are. Another thing that poetry did was to help me position myself in life again. Because when you lose somebody that's really close to you, you feel very off-centered, often discombobulated, just very deeply sad. And your life has to basically rearrange itself around the new order of things. And so I found that poetry sometimes gave a certain kind of structure to how I saw the situation that I was in. And so this next poem is called 3 Knocks. And the inspiration for the title 3 Knocks came from David Whyte's story that he tells about a D.H. Lawrence poem where it talks about how when you just have your life completely settled and you hang your last painting on the wall and you've got the furniture just right, then 3 angels come knocking and you open the door and they say you're out. So your life changes on a dime. Your life suddenly changes when you think you have everything just so. 3 Knocks. Yesterday, I sat pensive in a sunny cafe. The window ahead split into 3, past, present, future, all in a shot. Drawing no conclusions, my old ways loosened, falling to the left and right of me. You do not need to plan for the future, the life muse whispered with a little smile. You are free in the ways the brave ones know how to be. Your wheels are slower now, and it's good, very good. Wherever you're going, it's where you need to be. My snow boots find the ground as comfortable as bare feet in summer grass, and I walk to dinner with a friend, while another poet's wisdom plays right on cue, and I say aloud, notice, just when you're fully moved in and reach up to hang the last painting, 3 angels knock at your door and you're out. I look back at the years, the investment of loving, how it has come to this. On a spring afternoon, the first knock, diagnosis. By fall, the second knock, death. And the 3rd knock is now, opening the way to my new, unknown life. So in that poem, you see it's at the beginning of the book, and I wrote it quite early on in the grief process. I was able to literally position myself in a particular way, position myself to the past and to the present and to the potential future. And so this gave me a sense of being held by a structure. Of course, the other thing that poetry always does is it honors the beloved. Why do we write poems? We write poems because we love people. And this poem is one I wrote when Franz got his diagnosis, and I shared it with him as well. So it was a poem of love, and it has a lot of meaning for me, and it had a lot of meaning for me before and after his death. I have a hunch that missing someone is about being known, having a witness to what dwells within, beyond the domestic, but it includes that too. I imagine after a day of writing, or an afternoon talking to the kids, or an evening out with friends when I have come home to myself again, I will sit in bed take out my pen and write as many pages as it takes. Address, hymn, general delivery, cosmos. Because I will still want to tell you what I think it all means. Part of that poem ended up also on the funeral invitation that went out to family about, having a hunch. Missing someone is also about being known, and this was really meaningful to me. And it was really meaningful to be able to share it with Franz, and he received my poetry very graciously, and so I'm grateful to him for that. The last poem I'm going to read you before I close this short talk about the wisdom of poetry and bereavement and autoethnographic writing is to tell you how not only was I accompanied by others, as I showed in the Friends poem, and was I accompanied by the memories of Franz that I tell you in the Hunch poem, and was I accompanied by being able to place myself in time, but I was also accompanied by a sense that there were other resources in me. There were various parts of me that could accompany me. So I was not just the grieving widow, but I was also the interested academic learning about research. I was also the poet on a journey of discovery. And so this last poem talks to that point. In grief, there were slow afternoons and swampy midday mornings of discombobulation. There was walking with a leaden, burning heart and wondering why nature invented whimpering. I watched myself as griever, as walker, as the woman who put brie on crackers and reboiled water in the kettle 5 times. If there is a she to observe in grief, it must mean not every part of me was her. Who is the watcher of that griever, the writer, the steely-eyed note-taker of life, the warm poet of hard mornings, the humming scribe of candlelight hours, the shower singer, composers of lines good and sad? The writer never left me alone or exiled in grief. If there was a weeping her and a writing she, that had to mean I had company. So in reflecting on all the writing approaches that I used when I wrote my autoethnography, as I said, I did storytelling, narrative, and also did analysis using academic sources, and I also use poetry. I want to say this about it in conclusion. In reflecting on all the different writing approaches and dealing with unfinished business and grief and everything that has to do with grief, I think it is fair to say that the academic wants to understand. A storyteller wants to tell the tale and bring it to some kind of conclusion and be heard in the telling. And the poet needs none of these certainties. So poetry is often good at naming a problem without needing to resolve it. The writer gets the satisfaction of getting a hearing and also surrendering to the unsolvability of nearly everything. A poem can offer liberating and unusual perspectives, but it can just as easily remain content with the isness of things. Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Reineke Lengel. I work for Athabasca University and the Hague University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands. I'm a researcher there as well. And I've just written the book, Writing the Self in Bereavement, and it is available. Thank you.